We're rolling. We're recording.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Oregon Fan Show, the podcast where we talk with Duck fans and college football experts about the things that make us want to shout. It's No Shave Wednesday on the show. We ain't got time to bleed, but our next guest bleeds purple and gold. Please welcome Roman Tomashoff. Am I saying that right?
You are, yes.
Roman Tomashoff of Locked Huskies, a channel that's reached 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. He creates content every day, follows this team inside and out. Roman, welcome to the show.
Dale, thanks for having me. It's so great to be here. I know, we're going to go back and forth. That's how this all works. But I truly appreciate you thinking of me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I told you off the air that I hated your team, but I respect what you do and the precision and professionalism with which you cover that team. And I think it's always more fun to watch college football if you appreciate and respect the team, even the team you hate.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's something that, it's weird being able to say that, especially as I sit here in a Mariners shirt, I'm a massive Red Sox fan. And saying that about certain things in regards to the Yankees is something I will always feel very uncomfortable doing. But you're absolutely right. There always has to be some level of mutual respect that goes along with the hatred, because that's what makes sports so great. And it's just such a fun time to be able to sit here and do this full time.
I totally agree. I want to make just enough money doing this so that I can keep doing it.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I have no illusions about being the next Kirk Herbstreit or Joel Klatt or anybody like that. I just love doing it, love talking football with guys like you. And I just want to make it pay enough that I can keep doing it without making my wife mad.
That's number one at the end of the day as well. But now doing this as Dale, full well, it's so much fun to be able to, talk to people. Hey, yeah, no, I talk about sports. I cover sports. And it's something that, you get to, one of my favorite excuses is sitting on the couch, watching some football or watching a basketball game, do whatever, be like, no, I'm just sitting here working. This is what I do. And I feel like there are very few things in life that are better than that.
Very few things. How did you get to be a sports journalist, a Husky fan, the guy that you are doing this?
Oh, it's a fantastic question. So everything when it comes to all of that starts with my dad. My dad's a UW alum, graduated in the early 80s. And my sister actually just graduated from the UW Information School with a master's a couple of months ago as well. So round of applause to her that I give every chance that I get. But my dad not only is a lifelong Husky who's from this area, even though I grew up in Los Angeles, my dad is also in the field of journalism. He used to work at TV Guide, most recently worked on the Kelly Clarkson show as well. So sports journalism has always been part of me. I played baseball in high school, played baseball in college. And as I was like, I don't throw nearly hard enough to make the major leagues. I want to find a way to stay around sports however I possibly can. And I had a radio show with some of my best friends in college. I started writing about the Huskies in 2017 when I was like, hey, this is becoming a bigger thing. There's a huge market for this. So after college, I moved out here to Seattle and was lucky enough to get a start writing at the Everett Daily Herald newspaper. And unfortunately, as newspapers across the country continue to fold and things move online more and more and more, I was lucky enough to have several opportunities, whether it be at a site called RealDawg.com before linking up with Sports Illustrated before the 2023 season, which was great timing, and now doing, Huskies Wire for USA Today sports media group, and the Locked On Huskies podcast. I feel very lucky to continue to find new avenues, I should say, every single year, seemingly, to continue doing this full time.
It's really satisfying to be able to take the content right to the people.
Absolutely. It's something where you like doing things, through a newspaper, through an outlet, this or that is great. And that's fun. But being able to just as again, Dale, as full well, sit here and talk and just have conversations like this there's nothing like it.
And I think that's the key too. One of my goals on this show, we're a little different because you're a hard news guy, a journalist, but on this show, Oregon Fan Show, our focus is the fan experience and connection, the way that a fan base learns to love a team and that's why we like to talk to folks who can give people a deeper appreciation of what's going on.
And that's one of my favorite things about this, because at the end of the day, we're all fans of this, whether it be, even, yes, I have to, put on my journalism mask when I go to practice sometimes and not be like, whoa, this is the coolest thing in the world that I get to sit here and do this every day, even though it still feels that way 24/7. Don't get me wrong. I think that like, what is sports without fans? And that's where all of this passion comes from each and every person that I stand alongside and I do this with every day, talking with you. It all comes back to fandom and passion and love for this at the end of the day.
We got a glimpse of that in the COVID year. Having the guys play in those empty stadiums with nobody there except a few family members, it just wasn't the same.
No, it really wasn't. And it's something where it's really funny, like watching the NFL that season and hearing them like pump in the fake crowd noise and everything. It's nothing about this feels the same. Nothing about this feels right.
You don't have to pump in fake crowd noise at Husky Stadium.
No, you certainly don't. It's something where I will never forget several different moments of standing on the sideline and, I know it's a sore subject on this show, most likely, but the Oregon game in 2023, my ears were ringing for days on end after that game. It was just something that you will never forget once coming to Husky Stadium for a big game.
My heart was in my shoes for days. That was a painful day, but a great win for the Dawgs. I mean, they played great, and that was an amazing season.
It really was. And it was really cool. Just, you asked how I got into this and doing all that. The fact that was the first year of Locked On Huskies was doing that, in conjunction with a run to the national championship, was just so cool. And just being along the way for every single step of that journey, being at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, where one of my favorite stories that I like to tell is I watched the final 4 minutes of that game with Kenny Mayne standing right next to me and just having conversations with him as that was going on, and standing on the field during the national championship, which is something my dad and I had always talked about, just going to a Rose Bowl growing up in the early 2000s of Husky football and what that was like in the Tyrone Willingham days. And just kind of standing there and looking around and, greeting all these people that I'd just grown relationships with in the program. Just is this really what life is? This is unbelievable.
Amazing to get paid for doing something that gives you so much energy.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, again, at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. And that's the most fun part of all of this.
Totally. Okay, let's get to some of your content. Today, or just 2 hours ago, you posted a story about Washington has shown all the signs of a team that has the talent necessary to compete in the Big Ten. Please talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's today's episode of Locked On Huskies, and it was kind of a review of what I've seen at practice over the last couple of days, and something that I had a really great conversation with a friend of mine during yesterday's practice, where we were talking about how this Husky team has all of the talent to be a 9-10 win team in the Big Ten this coming year, but it doesn't feel like that from a lot of outside perspectives, because the biggest stories around this team are, well, Damon Williams tried to transfer. Well, you lost Denzel Boston, Jonah Coleman. You lost 7 players to the NFL draft. How are you going to sit here and say this when I look at the defensive line? And I think that it's a very deep unit that we haven't seen before under Jed Fish, at the very least, where he talked about that during yesterday's press conference. And it's something I look at the wide receiver position. Losing Denzel Boston is a massive blow to any group, right? You lose a guy that goes top 40 in the NFL draft. It's very hard to replace that. Even though when he was, coming in as a starter, we weren't having this conversation because you had Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk. It's, okay, this is just the next in a line of NFL guys. I look at what Washington has all over the field, and there's so much talent, whether it be on the offensive line, led by a guy like John Mills, who is just not just an impressive talent, allowing 8 pressures as a true freshman last year, but somebody who is a really electric personality to be around and is just a very fun player to watch grow and develop. I look at leaders like that and what he looked like as a true freshman, and then I think about what Cody Green can be right next to him at left tackle this year. He's got that same level of talent and athleticism and just upside. that you look for on the offensive line, but he's a true freshman. So people aren't going to talk about him like that. I look at wide receiver again. You lose Denzel Boston, but guys like Trez Davis and Jordan Clay coming in as 4-star recruits, they've made major impressions so far during spring practice. I would say the same thing about a guy like Christian Moss, who missed the majority of spring with a hamstring injury, but has come back this fall and has asserted himself as somebody who can absolutely make a difference in that wide receiver room. And then on the defensive side, again, the defensive line is really fun. The linebackers is going to be one of the deepest, most impressive units in the country by year's end, with guys like Jacob Manu and X-Ray Alexander leading the way. I believe that Zadris Rainey-Saleh would have been another player that just, joins this list of ever-growing freshman All-Americans for Jed Fish if he didn't suffer a torn ACL in high school and was able to play through the entirety of the 2025 season. This unit has so much talent that just is a little bit underrealized right now because so much of it is young and inexperienced and doesn't have the numbers or the production or even just the longevity of seeing it with your own two eyes at a college practice that we have in years past.
Roman, I knew if I just asked you a couple questions and let the people get to know you a little bit that you would just cook.
I appreciate it. Now we're just getting started here too. What else you got for me, Dale?
Well, let's listen to your conversation yesterday with Washington running backs coach. Let me bring it up here, see if I can use my toys right.
No, I did it once. Half marathon season's over. Put everything in the drawer right now. We're in the submarine. We're in training camp.
What have you seen from this room so far through the first week of practice?
Just tough, talented. Hard to see a lot. Today you saw a little bit more of it because we had the pads on. We don't have pads on. It's hard to tell exactly angles. Can they break that tackle? So they're progressing.
What do Cooley and Lamar have to do to get into the rotation? I know they're still kind of in recovery.
Just continue to come back. They're both really good backs and quality guys. They'll be able to help us this year.
How much time will they need to legitimize themselves?
You never talk to Tom and Coach Fish about that.
I love talking to Scotty Graham. He is absolutely one of my favorite coaches to talk to on this staff. And running back is so interesting when it comes to Washington this year because one of the guys that is expected to be, in this rotation is a familiar face to Oregon fans in Jaden Lamar. And it's something where we haven't seen much of him in practice just yet. He had an ankle surgery in January or February that kept him out for all of spring ball, and he's still working his way back into the mix during fall camp. And it's something where in his stead, we've seen somebody like sophomore Quade Carr really shine. And he's someone that whenever you talk to any member of this coaching staff, it's always really fun. And it's one of the things that I enjoy about doing this job of when you talk to different coaches and, oh, hey, what are you seeing from this group? What are you seeing from that group? Just to get an idea of what they're looking at during practice. One of the people who continues to show up over and over again is Quade Carr. And Scotty Graham has been very vocal of like, hey, this is a kid who was Trinity League Player of the Year down at Servite High School. And that's, arguably the toughest high school football league in the country with Mater Dei, with St. John Bosco, some of those other powerhouses that you have around there. So it takes a lot of talent and a lot of ability to be able to be named Player of the Year in that league of all places. And so it's something where we saw him very briefly last year, but throughout spring practice and so far early in fall camp, that's somebody with vision and speed and patience in this zone scheme that Washington likes to run that can certainly find success. And as Jaden Lamar continues to get healthy, we've talked to him about his success in running in a zone offense and his understanding with that, combining that with Jaden's ability as a pass protector. I feel like Washington's running back room isn't going to be defined like with one person like it has been in years past with Jonah Coleman and even with Adam Muhammad last year when Jonah got hurt. I think that this is a room that's going to be defined by 3 or 4 guys. And I think Quade, I think that Jaden Lamar, I think that true freshman Brian Bonner is another player who's going to have a major role in this offense. Combining all of that with what Damon Williams brings as a rusher, I think that there's so much to like about where this running back room is. And that's where I have the most questions right now. But it's why I keep coming back to Quade Carr, and just the reviews that he's getting internally are very, very promising.
You get to watch practice. I mean, I see you post a lot of clips. Are Washington practices open?
They are, yeah. Jed Fish actually keeps all of his practices open to the public as well as the media. So it's really fun to be able to, do our jobs that way where there is a lot to watch. There is a lot to see. Like under Kalen DeBoer, there were sections that we were able to watch and take video and do all that. But then we were, sequestered to a room where I wound up like writing and, watching Star Wars stuff because that's just what I do in my spare time. like it's really fun to be able to do it from this perspective of watching all the team periods and getting to see all this progression from, first year and fifth year guys at this point too.
Okay, Star Wars. That's why you and Spencer McLaughlin have such a great chemistry on the crossover shows.
Oh, you should see our Instagram DMs. It's just all like Star Wars jokes back and forth all day long.
I love it. Well, it's good to have balance. It's good to have other things you like and enjoy. What do you like to do away from football?
So I'm a big movie guy. I've really enjoyed, I've actually gone to see Spider-Man twice in the last couple of weeks. Highly recommend for anybody out there who hasn't seen it. The Odyssey was tremendous as well. I'm big into, movies, pop culture, that sort of stuff as it pertains to all of that. Superheroes, certainly a big thing for me. I don't know if anybody out there is a big Green Lantern fan. I consider myself one of the world's foremost Green Lantern fans in that regard. That new show coming out on HBO Max in a couple of weeks is something I'm very, very much looking forward to. Kyle Chandler is also just one of my favorite actors. I'm going through my yearly Friday Night Lights rewatch right now as well while I, sit here and write. Tremendous show. And so seeing him play Hal Jordan, who's just my all-time favorite superhero, is I couldn't be more excited for that as well.
Texas forever.
Texas forever. One of my favorite stories is I have a Dillon Panthers 2006 state champs shirt. And I walked I think it was a GameStop one time a bunch of years ago. And the guy like looks at my shirt and he's just giving me this weird side eye. And he goes, "I'm from Texas. Where's Dillon, Texas?" And I was like, "Friday Night Lights?" Like, and he goes, "Oh yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, I know, I'm a big fan of the show." And he just looks at me and he very clearly had no idea what I was talking about. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to pay for this and I'm going to leave because, that's one of those things where if you know, you know.
Yeah. Ducks had a quarterback, Austin Novosad from Dripping Springs, Texas. And Kyle Chandler loved that part of Texas so much that he bought a ranch there. And that's where he...
Yes, a fun story that I actually don't tell very often. So like I said, my dad works in television and Kyle Chandler is someone that has been on several shows and worked with my dad several times. He has extended an invite for me to hang out at said ranch for the weekend that I unfortunately have not taken him up on just yet. And I'd very much like to do so at some point in time.
Roman, what are you, crazy? You can send the shows in remotely. Get down there and talk to Coach.
It seems like he's a little busy at this point in time, and we'll find a way to make our schedules work. Don't you worry.
It's awesome. I think that background and that family history in media only makes you better at what you do.
I appreciate it. It's one of those things that, like, growing up in that field and, being able to go behind the scenes on television shows. Like my dad worked on the Queen Latifah show for a couple of years. One of my favorite human beings on this planet, by the way, just a wonderful woman. I've been able to learn and see so much and just absorb it all of, okay, this is how some of these things work. And this is how, you can develop relationships with some of these people where, like, whoa, this person is standing 4 feet away from me and I'm having a conversation with them. I didn't realize what that's like. And then it's something that I feel very, I don't want to say uniquely qualified, but just very lucky to have some of the experiences that I have in that regard and how I'm able to use them in my job moving forward.
It's got to be a huge edge in your development that, you've been in a room with some of those people, Queen Latifah, Kyle Chandler. So you don't get starstruck. You don't become Chris Farley fanboy when you're doing interviews.
There's one thing I can't say I've never been starstruck. That is absolutely, it still happens to me. It's one of the fun parts of this job, but no, I completely agree with you. Like it's something that the more you do the job as well, I would say the easier some of these interactions become. But at the same point in time, that doesn't mean that you're any less lucky or any less happy to be talking to this person or, interviewing this, whether it be over the phone or in person or just standing out there on the field and like, whoa, this media personality that I've watched for several years said that they watched my show. There's no way. Like that's still amazing.
That's got to be a thrill. I think to do this job at all well, and I'm just striving to do it at all, you have to start with a reverence for the sport and a respect for the people who play it and coach it.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. First of all, Dale, you're doing a tremendous job. I love everything that you do. I think that it's something that, yeah, you have to realize that at the end of the day, they are people too, and they have lives outside of sports that they want to get back to. And yes, there is criticism that is fair when doing their jobs. And like, hey, I don't know how I feel about this play call, or, I see things a little bit differently when this happened or when that happened. But at the end of the day, there is a line with all of this as well. When you treat these people with the respect that they deserve and that they've earned because they show it to you every day, then a lot of these things do get to be very, very easy.
I've always loved the way Kyle Whittingham handles the media. I mean, he's respectful. He answers questions. He doesn't bait people. He doesn't lash out at them. The man is a true gentleman, and I think a perfect fit for the Michigan program.
He really is. And it's something where I think about that as it pertains to Jedd Fisch in Washington a lot too, where he's very good in terms of the advertisement, the playing up things for the camera and having these genuine relationships with people behind the scenes as well. But on top of that, he does something with Washington that I think was sorely lacking in this modern age of social media of, I'm going to advertise these things. I'm going to be a showman a little bit. I'm going to take things that, maybe some people feel is a half step too far sometimes, but thinking about the Chris Peterson days and thinking about Kalen DeBoer as well, who was just, all about winning and just, I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to push forward. I'm going to do all these sorts of things. It's not to say that those things are wrong or, the incorrect way to go about it in any sense of the word, but thinking about how Jedd Fisch is like, no, I want to make sure I use social media. I want to use all these outlets. I want to do all these different appearances on podcasts and radios and talk to every single person I can to advertise this program and move it forward and talk about Damon Williams as a Heisman finalist in the future and potential high-level NFL draft pick. Those are the sorts of things that might rub some people the wrong way. But that's what you need to not just get ahead, but continue to get yourself out there in the year 2026.
You got to admire the energy and drive and his commitment to being where he's planted. Does it feel like he's there for the long term?
I would say so. Like, obviously the Florida and the Michigan things were big stories over this past offseason. I don't play too much in the UCLA one. I feel like that when you dive into some of the things around, like, who reps Jedd Fisch and his team and who also is sitting on UCLA's board when it comes to the hiring and all that. And I think that was a little bit of, let's try to find a way to get our guys some more money. Florida, there was always going to be that sort of nerve because it's his alma mater, because he learned under Steve Spurrier, all those sorts of things. And then Michigan, he is a good fit for that job in terms of what he brings to the offense and the fact that he was calling plays there for a couple of years in the mid 2010s. But looking around college football right now, looking at what jobs could potentially come open this year, next year, I don't feel that there are a lot of ones that just I would look at and say they're an upgrade for Jedd Fisch from what Washington is. And so I think it's something where he continues to win games and shows that he can be a 9-10 win coach every single year, that Washington's athletic department is going to say, okay, yeah, this is the guy we want to make sure we keep around with the way he's acquiring talent, with the way he's marketing the program. That's just bringing in more money in this day and age, and more money, more wins, all of that, more notoriety, continuing to move forward. I feel like there is a very strong chance that Jedd Fisch is here for the long haul.
Well, there's a rich tradition to draw on, and there's some money up there.
Oh yeah. No, that's a big part of it. And it goes back to what I was just saying about Jedd and who he is, where it was a little uncomfortable for some people when one of his first press conferences, he's sitting up there saying, oh yeah, the Fortune 500, all these companies that are around here, I want to get these people involved. I want to get those people involved. And it's, oh yeah, we can talk about that now. We can do that now in college football. And seeing what kind of money can flow into Washington is very promising, where the Huskies are still looking for the jersey sponsors, the new stadium rights when that deal expires following this coming year. There is a major opportunity for the Huskies to see a major cash flow moving forward, as your program and mine, Dale, struggle in the same right of having a half share in the media rights deal over the next couple of seasons. Like, you have to find ways to make up that deficit.
That jersey patch thing is crucial, right? You
Yeah.
got to get that right, because the brand that you choose to identify with, it reflects on your program.
It certainly does. And it's something where, like Washington does have, from the looks of it, several strong suitors. And now it's not just something that's for football either. I think that part gets lost in a lot of this, where you look at all these big deals that have gone around, whether it's Ohio State, Notre Dame, that have come out in recent weeks. It's, hey, that's worth so much more. Like, yeah, football is the king at the end of the day, but for programs like men's and women's basketball, which can certainly be, net positives when it comes down to making deep runs in the NCAA tournament, or a good baseball or softball team, what those kinds of programs can bring in when things are going right. I think that kind of gets lost in the discussion of things like jersey rights and why those things aren't just, done already.
Football drives the bus, but you got to make room for everybody to get on.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things that, like, just, in this media centric world of college football too, of like, that's what drives so much. People don't notice that behind the scenes.
Okay, Roman, let's shift gears. If Damon Williams were a superhero, and sometimes he plays like one, who would he be? Who's his doppelganger in the superhero world?
That's a really great question. I feel like the answer that I want to go with, mainly because of his athleticism, would have to be the Flash. It's one of those things where, like, I think back to 3rd and 18 against Illinois last year, where he rolls out and runs through a defender, 3 yards beyond the line to gain. There are so many different little plays like that where it's, oh, how did he do that? He's that athletic. He can run like that. Like, it's so impressive. And it's something where he's grown over the offseason. He's added a couple inches. He's added 5-10 pounds to his frame as well. So it's something where, as he continues to get bigger, all of these things can't be lost in terms of he also is a very impressive thrower of the football. He completed close to 70% of his passes last year. This is somebody who can play in structure and do all those things. But in terms of what he does with his legs and as an athlete, I think that's what really sets him apart as a quarterback.
The Heisman loves a dual threat quarterback who elevates his team.
And that's exactly what we need to see from Damon in 2026, without Jonah Coleman, without Denzel Boston, where there are so many questions in terms of who's going to step up at running back, at wide receiver. Like I said, I believe the talent is very much there, but now it's on Damon going from, the kid last year of getting his feet under him as a full-time starter, and I can lean on this guy, I can lean on that guy, to now he's had to take ownership of all of these things and be that driving force that moves the offense forward.
I saw a Friday night game against Rutgers last year where he absolutely destroyed them. I think he threw for 320 and ran for 150. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was an amazing game. He was the man on the field that night.
Yeah, he threw for 400 in that game and rushed for 130, became one of 16 FBS quarterbacks to have ever reached that mark. And that's exactly what it was. That's the high end. That's what Damon Williams can be. And now it's something where there were some moments last year of feeling things out, whether it be, Wisconsin, Michigan, Oregon, Ohio State, where I think the biggest thing for Damon now is learning when he needs to be Superman, when he needs to be that hero, and when he needs to just take what's given or just live to play another down. Because that's what lost you the Wisconsin game, where he tried to make a play and fumbled the ball inside the 10-yard line, which led to the Badgers' only touchdown in that game. It's something that showed up several times against Ohio State, against Oregon, where, hey, all of a sudden you see Tatum Tuioti coming off the edge. You see Mason Posa at Wisconsin, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, where he finally finds athletes that are matches for him physically, that can contain him when he tries to get outside the pocket, that can just run him down. And, those gains that you look at against Illinois, Rutgers, that were 15, 20-yard chunk plays, all of a sudden that's a loss of 2 because Arvell Reese is just that athletic. He's just that good. And those are the kinds of things that I think that with Damon in 2026, that's where you want to see the growth. You want to see with plays like that, and that kind of guy is there and is playing contained for you on the edge. Are you going to be able to throw with rhythm and timing over the middle of the field and trust your receivers to go make a play for you?
I thought the whole Damon tried to leave, Damon came back thing was really overblown by the national media. I mean, the players at the end of the day know this is a business, and the only thing they're going to feel for a guy who tested the market is admiration.
I think one of the things that plays into this is the fact that Washington had already signed him to that NIL deal for the 26th season. And that's kind of what made it such a big national story where, if he wanted to test the market and then still wound up returning to Washington, that was something that was still very possible. That was just the extra step that made it so difficult. I think that it's still somewhat being overblown where, that's every question he has to face at Big Ten Media Day when we were there a couple weeks ago. It's something that he's going to have to hear every single week when he has to sit down with a broadcast crew of like, hey, what have you learned from this? Is this something that you think is still an issue with your teammates? And I can tell you, Dale, that it's not. It's something where, of course, there was going to be a little bit of, trepidation and weird energy those first couple of days, but he was only out of the building for like 48 hours. And he comes back. He goes through every workout during the winter period. He's there for spring practice. He's, you talk to anybody around the program, he's developed into one of the leaders on this team over the summer. He is now that guy. He is now what Jed Fish has called him since the day he arrived, the face of this team and the face of this program. And that's something that I think that he understands, recognizes, and has really learned what it takes to do that.
I think he and Dante Moore are on a similar trajectory so far. They both played great at times. They both can throw a pretty ball and make great plays, but they've got to make those great plays against the Arvell Reeses and the Indianas of the world. They got to show up and be the best player on the field in those games.
And that's exactly what this season comes down to at the end of the day, because there are 3 big games that I look at for that. You go to USC in early October, right after Oregon plays them. And then at the end of the year, you have Indiana and Oregon back to back. Those 3 games right there are where you really need to see Damon step up. And there are several other moments, right? I think about going to Nebraska at the end of October as a team that's going to be a well-coached defense, as it always is, but just another one of those moments where, hey, these are the kinds of games last year where the inexperience showed, or, there were a couple of games, the Ohio State one, the Michigan one, where there were cracks in the offensive line. There were injuries that certainly didn't help anything. But I continue to think about these moments in 2026. And I talked to Damon about this on Locked On Huskies a couple of weeks ago. And he said, yeah, it's something where, I've learned enough from the film. I've learned enough on the physical side of things. And, seeing all of that, it's about the mental side of things. It's if I do make a mistake, not letting it compound, not letting it say, okay, I need to wait for next week to make up for it. No, it's, staying calm, staying composed, and staying in the moment and finding different ways to overcome things on that next drive, on that next play.
Not just staying in the moment, but staying in the flow of the game and
yes,
at times dictating the flow of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's something that only comes with experience, right? Where, especially when you look at the 2 starts that he had in 2024, playing behind the offensive line that he did, obviously his first career start coming at Oregon, it's very hard to do that. It's very hard to figure out what that flow might look like when every single play you're calling all of a sudden is off script and all of a sudden it's off structure. And we saw that, in bits and pieces last year. You mentioned the Rutgers game. The Washington State game is another great example of him just saying, oh, okay, I can play in structure. This is what I can do. This is what I can get away with. This is what I can't. Those sorts of things, now having 14 starts under his belt, is so, so important and so crucial for what things are going to look like for him moving forward. And now coming into the season with that added layer of experience, I think are very critical for his development.
You compared him earlier in the show to Superman and the Flash. I think that his potential at the top end is Russell Wilson and Bo Nix.
I can certainly see that. And it's something where with the athleticism that he brings to the table, he can go out there and do a little bit of everything. Where I like those two comparisons because it's for very different reasons. Where with Bo Nix, one of the things that he did so well at Oregon was playing in that structure and was just, having all of that veteran knowledge of, I know I need to get the ball here. I know the ball needs to be out quick. I need to take the snap, read, nope, first one, nope, second one's not there. Okay, I need to go. Like those are the sorts of things that made him so tough to defend. And with Russell, it is sometimes that ability to thrive off structure that he had in Seattle. And outside of that, his ability to push the ball down the field as well, I think is something that is a little bit of an underrated part of DeMond's game because he is a shorter quarterback. But he did that so well at times this past year. And I think that with the way Washington has continued to add speed and athleticism at wide receiver, we could see more of that this year too.
That'll really open things up, especially when you have a running back by committee.
Absolutely. And this running back by committee is built on speed too, where I think it's a very fun thing with how DeMond's legs change, how a defense can, call things in the front seven and what certain plays might look like, because there's always the threat of him just keeping the ball in a read option and trying to get off tackle. So when I think about a guy like Quade Carr or a guy like Brian Bonner, who were 10-6, 10-5, 100-meter dash guys in high school that have the ability to get off tackle and turn up field and go, it's very exciting to see what kind of possibilities this offense has in the running game as well.
One of my favorite stats to quote is Bill Connolly of ESPN. Teams that win the explosiveness battle win 88% of the time.
And that's something that Washington has done very, very well. And we saw that last year where the explosiveness now at the end of the day comes back to who are you going to find that steps up, especially at wide receiver, because Jonah Coleman created those explosive plays in the running game, but so did DeMond Williams. So there still is that threat in the running game in some way. And now it's a matter of, again, finding who's going to step up there. But at wide receiver, it's who's going to push the ball downfield, who is going to be that Denzel Boston level threat, where that's a guy who had 60 catches last year for almost 900 yards. And so that kind of production, that kind of threat to tilt the defense one way is something that's very, very hard to find. But if you can find that player, all of a sudden Washington, which was, among the best in the Big Ten at plays of 20 plus yards last year, you're right there with that number again.
Roman, do the Huskies have the depth in the trenches to make a run at 10 wins in the playoff?
I certainly think so. And it's something where you look at what this defensive line is. It's hard to say that without seeing it, where you lose 10 guys from that room from last year, whether it be to graduation or 9 now with the class of 2022 ruling, getting one of those players back in Taitai Uyunglele, whether it be to the draft, the transfer portal, graduation. You're turning over a lot of names in that room. But I look at a guy like Alinius Davis as kind of the linchpin in the middle of, that's a player that this Husky defense and this coaching staff expects to step up and be a star. You combine that with a guy like Deshaun Watts, who he got out of the transfer portal, who is the highest graded run defender, regardless of level, in college football last year with what he did at Sacramento State. And then you bring in players like Darren Conley from Ball State, who's a really athletic defensive tackle that can rush the passer and give you a little bit in that regard. And combine that with somebody like Kai McClendon, another transfer portal acquisition from Mississippi State, who started games there as a true freshman in 2024 before he was just limited by a knee injury last year. So I look at that, combining it with high upside like Derek Coleman-Brusa, T.I. Mukais from these ranks of true freshmen, and a much deeper group of pass rushers on the edge as well. I believe that this coaching staff thinks that not only is the depth there, but you can talk to several members and say, this is the deepest group of pass rushers we've ever had.
And Ryan Walters to coach them, is that right?
That's right. He is back for his second season, and he is somebody who I love how creative he is. I asked him the other day about this depth on the defensive line and how it changes what he wants to do. And he said, yeah, it's something where we don't have to go in just saying, how are we going to adjust our scheme to combat this defense versus that one? No, we have like 2 or 3 different base schemes, if you will, that they can go to depending on what the opposing offense does well and how he believes that his guys can go out there and shut them down. And, living in an era of multiple defense, having that kind of multiplicity and versatility is a very exciting thought.
Well, it's a 20-week grind, and they'll have to stay focused for the whole thing. Roman, what are you working on today?
Today, I'm still figuring out what I want to do for the podcast. I think I'm going to talk about the defensive line and just that depth and that versatility. Now, I'm doing a whole lot of writing where today's an off day from fall camp, so I got a lot to catch up on. I'm writing about wide receivers. I'm writing about the guys in the NFL because Jalen McMillan just came back from a knee injury, which is always great to see. So I got a whole lot of that to do. Probably find some recruiting stuff to do as well. It's going to be a very busy day, but a very fun one nonetheless.
It's just the same as it is for the coaches for us. Always be recruiting.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing is Washington just got a crystal ball not too long ago from a couple different of the national analysts over at On3 to land the number 1 edge rusher in the country in the 2028 class in 5-star Jelani George at a Desert Edge High School in Arizona. So I'm keeping a very, very close eye on that one.
It's amazing to me how the recruiting calendar has sped up. It's on 1.75 speed now. I mean, we're talking about the 2028 class. The 2027 class has almost all made their commitments. Just about everybody.
Oh yeah, it's a whirlwind. Like those guys haven't signed yet. They're almost 4 months away from signing, and we're sitting here being like, oh yeah, like I know Washington's class is pretty much wrapped up at this point in time. It feels like Oregon's is at that point as well, and it's. All right, well, now we gotta look at these underclassmen. We gotta look at guys that are maybe days, maybe a year away from making their commitment. It's wild.
It really is wild. Both Washington and Oregon have 24 commitments right now. And Brayton Feaster, a linebacker from Ohio, commits on Friday on the Pat McAfee show. And that's pretty much it. That's the class, other than a flip or two. Whereas even 4 years ago, at this time, you'd have maybe 12, 15 kids committed. Totally
That's
different.
Crazy. And the one thing I will say that I think is a good idea, and the NIL and all that stuff aside, which is obviously very important to get hammered out, but I think it's really smart that the calendar is sped up in certain ways where a lot of kids don't want to be dealing with that distraction during their senior year. And one thing that I've enjoyed about the recruiting side and the analysis that goes along with that is watching progressions in high school players from their junior to their senior year, because a lot of times when these players do make their commitments early and, they're shutting things down and they're just saying, all right, I'm locked in with this program, you can see a lot of advancements in their game, and you can see a lot of players just get better in 1 or 2 very specific areas that it's clear that that's what the coaching staff that they were committed to wanted them to work on. And I think that's a very underrealized part of the recruiting process as well.
I think Jed Fish and Dan Lanning both like players who think that way, are thinking about development and growth instead of chasing stars.
Oh, I agree. And it's something where I think that's very clear from the battles that the two programs have had on the recruiting trail in, some past classes, what it's going to look like in the future, and just development and that high-end talent of you, not just that, but what kind of fit you are culture-wise in the program. All of that is so important. And I feel like just doesn't get discussed enough.
Cody Green was a big get for the Dawgs. I was jealous of that one.
Oh, getting him to come back home is a really huge win for this program. And it's a testament to everybody in the program, because that was such a big deal for everyone to get him to come on campus for a visit and just say, hey, look, the passion and pride that you can play with for your hometown team is so special. And having his brother on the roster is really cool, and seeing his family is out there at every practice. And same with Derek Coleman Brusa, another local guy who was down to UW in Oregon as well. His older brother is a Husky too, and his parents are out there with several members of their family for every single practice. And that's the kind of thing that I really enjoy that Jed Fish has done, because obviously they're tremendous talents, right? Like that's why they have the rankings that they do and the offers that they do. But getting a chance to talk with both of them and their families it's very clear that they're also just great people, that no matter where they're going to go, it's, oh, that's somebody who fits in with our culture and what we want to get done, because they're hard workers and they're just, at the end of the day, kind-hearted individuals.
Green's a future franchise left tackle, and that was a tremendous coup.
And he's going to be starting from day one. And from what he's looked like during spring practice, during fall camp, he looks like he's not going to miss much of a beat.
Roman, I thank you so much for your generosity. Tell folks again, please, where they can find you and Locked On Huskies.
Oh, Dale, again, it's a pleasure to be here. And if you ever need me to come back, please just give me a call. I'm happy to jump back on with you. Yeah, feel free to subscribe to Locked On Huskies on all forms of podcasting, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you're listening to this, you can find Locked On Huskies as well. We're on all forms of social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're updating with practice videos, coach interviews, player interviews, just different clips from the show. And then I'm on all forms of social media at Tomashoff34. And then all my written work is at uwhuskieswire.usatoday.com.
Outstanding. Folks, college football is more fun if you hate your enemy, but love your enemy, respect your enemy. You don't miss Roman's duels and face-offs with Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Big Ten and Locked On College Football. Great to have you today, Roman. Thank you very much, and enjoy the season.
Oh, I will, Dale. You do the same. Thanks for having me.